back in November of 23, I wrote and produced a video explaining why I don't respond to apologists, or as I like to call them, excusagists, who make videos responding to my videos. I'll put a link in the description below, but the gist of that diatribe was pretty simple. I just can't take such people seriously. When you look at all the nonsense they say they believe, and in many cases have to believe in order to be saved, I know right from the start that I'm talking to some truly, undeniably silly people. That begins and ends with a holy book allegedly inspired by an all-knowing being which gives humans a potion of dirt water to detect the infidelity of a cheating wife, and which also aborts the baby in her villainous womb. A book where zombies rise up from their graves and hang out in downtown Jerusalem, where all kinds of animals routinely converse with humans, a hit team made up of bear assassins, a god who lusts after men's foreskins, etc. Of course, who am I, right? I'm just some schmuck with a YouTube channel and a great head of hair. I don't have any degrees in theology, philosophy, philology, animal husbandry, or ancient history. I'm not a Dan McClellan type. I'm not trained in ancient Near Eastern languages. I've not spent my life studying these ancient texts and cultures in the hallowed halls of academia like Bart Ehrman, Joshua Bowen, Kip Davis, or Richard C. Miller, etc. So in that regard, I'm clearly not someone who should be taken seriously either. Indeed, I'm a satirist and humorist. The entire point of what I do is to not take things so seriously. Having said that, though, I think it's important to point out that in this particular context, I'm not the only one who doesn't take excusagists and excusagetics seriously. Serious academics in these various fields don't take these folks seriously either. And that has Low Bar Bill's panties in a bunch. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's listen to scholar Dr. Richard C. Miller on the Myth Vision podcast. Go, Derek!
How do scholars see this field of apologetics, if they even see it at all? Tell me about apologetics from the angle of real serious academia.
Well, it's largely ignored. I don't know. I mean, when I was at Yale and Princeton and those places, there was no discussion of that. They wouldn't know who William Lane Craig is. You know, I could talk to I went to Biola University. I met with James Charlesworth. That was where I did my master's degree. He said, "Where did you do your prior work?" And I told him Biola. He said, "Bio what?" He had no idea what that was. That's William Lane Craig's, academy there. He had no idea what it was. It's not even on the radar, really. They consider that to be public kind of poop throwing and debate that has, it's kind of a circus of spectacle. It's rhetorical and not really, meeting any of the standards of rigor that they would find helpful in their circles. And they can't be persuaded because that's not what they're not getting their paychecks for that. That's not what they went to school for. That's not what they're trying to do. They're not on a truth journey. They're going to defend the castle at all costs, and their castle is this edifice of orthodoxy as they understand it. And I find that grossly dishonest, deeply ignorant, and not worth anyone's time who's a serious academic.
Amazingly, Bill's panties are not in a bunch because he's upset by Miller's comments, but because he agrees.
Well, I think that Miller's remarks should be a real wake-up call for Christians, because he accurately reflects the attitude of secular academics toward us as evangelicals. And it is very true that in his community or subculture, apologetics is a dirty word. It connotes bias, close-mindedness, dogmatism, so that although among Christians apologetics is a traditional, respected theological curriculum, for people like Miller, it's offensive. And therefore, when I'm introduced on a secular campus, I feel very uncomfortable when the moderator introduces me as a great Christian apologist, he thinks he's paying me a compliment, when in fact, in the eyes of the listeners, this is actually an insult.
Well, it's not just the listeners in any particular audience, Bill. It's the academics in the relevant fields who don't think the term apologist is a compliment, because they're the ones doing the serious scholarly work in these fields, following the data wherever it takes them rather than forcing it into the narrow channels beyond which apologists are forbidden, often by their signed loyalty oaths and statements of faith. These scholars see the bias, the closed-mindedness, and the dogmatism. They see it firsthand, and with the background knowledge which makes all of it obvious.
When you go away to do a doctoral degree at a secular university, you suddenly discover that all of your evangelical heroes are very big fish in a very small pond.
That's exactly what you and your buddies are doing, Bill. And I'll bet you'd be able to see it if we just tweak the circumstances and situation a bit. I'm sure you're aware that other religions have excusagists too, right? Jews have excusagists, though not quite so prominently. Catholics have excusagists. Muslims have excusagists. For Hitchin's sake, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons have excusagists. How seriously do you take them, Bill? Aren't you absolutely certain that these are people who simply believe in their religion so desperately that they'll find any way possible to make their round faith peg fit through that square data hole? Sorry, data. When Mormons can't produce evidence that the Native Americans are Hebrews who crossed the Atlantic 2,600 years ago, offering instead arguments and excuses, don't you think of them as kind of pathetic? That might be a bit more harsh than a very big fish in a very small pond, but the meaning is the same. Apologists think they're really something, the defenders of the faith, as though an all-powerful God needs such defending. But in the end, they're all just making it clear to everyone that their holy book is full of holes, which they have to spend enormous resources patching, doing nothing more than drawing everyone's attention to the patchwork and the need for it. The same way you don't take Mormon excusagists seriously is the same way everyone else looks at you, Bill, Michael, Cameron. Whether they're just some schmuck with a YouTube channel and unrivaled sexual appeal, or the scholars who work in these various fields and really know their shiznick. Everyone knows that you just want your beliefs to be true so badly, even if there's only a 1 in a million chance they actually are. Once again, I'm me. Thanks for watching.